Alright, what up, y'all? Let's get into Space Part 3. Let's talk about the golden position. So, this is going to be a very unique concept I'm going to introduce. It's pretty different, and a lot of people do not actually talk about it. So, I'm going to start out right the gate. This position is relative to your character. The way this works is very unique because it's basically playing with space in between your character's toolkit ranges. That's the easiest way to put that. And I think Labris is a good case of showing this because of the fact that she has very different ways of playing her pressure game depending on what range she's in. So let's get into some Labris thing. So this is before axe level even matters, so I'm not going to talk about axe level at all yet, but I will further in to further explain why her game changes so drastically depending on her range. But let's start off with a brief thing about ranges. So right up close in someone's face, this is what we call range 0. Slightly back from it is like range 1. And the difference between range 0 and range 1 is really just can you throw somebody? That's usually how that kind of works. If you're within range 0, you can clearly get a throw. If you're in range 1, this is usually like tick throw range where you're not naturally going to land a throw unless your character would have abnormally long throw range. Then farther back towards like round start distance or maybe slightly closer than that, range 2, and so on and so forth. Or it gets to a point that really like anything past range 3, which is like true like neutral, somewhere around here-ish, does not really matter. But for going forward, for how I'm going to talk about ranges once they are mentioned, and keep in mind range 0 is here, range 1 is somewhere around here, 2, and then 3. But Labris loves playing in range 0. This is where her 5A and poke buttons get most of their shine. Here within this range, this is where she has 2A staggers, 5A stagger with 5A, 5AA. And again, she's in range to actually pressure her throw loop game, because she actually has a throw loop game. But the thing is that as soon as you get outside of that, like as soon as 5A and 2A whiff, this is where her game plan changes a lot because of the fact that then she turns into more of a neutral based character where 5B reaches pretty far, her sweep travels forward, moves pretty far, on top of the fact that she has guillotine axe. These things matter a lot for her pressure game, especially when you're going between these ranges. Between these ranges, she has a lot of play depending on what's happening. So when you're sitting here in range 0, right, you are so close to the opponent, you're always immediately trying to pressure them. So in this case, you're pretty limited to sitting there and like doing your stagger pressure, doing your throw mix, and doing all of that. You are stuck in this range with the opponent where you're kind of doing your game as standard. But the thing is, as soon as Labras backs up to here, then she has a different mix-up game that is not throw-based. Because now, at this range, she now gets to play with the opponent can feel that they have options. Because you are now giving them enough space for now they feel like they have options, so they might be able to press back on you. The thing is, like at this range, she's still effective because again, she has all these tools that not only lead to big reward on hit for punishing them trying to attempt to get out, but also she gets her mix-up game of both low and high. And this doesn't feel like it's that good, right? Because it's slow, right? It's a slow overhead and a slow sweep. But there is actually a genuine mix-up behind this because of the fact that once you're at this range, especially max range of guillotine, because it hits like from way back here, at this range, especially with sweep still hitting, now you're in a very unique spot where most characters actually cannot punish you. And being able to play in this range where you're going from like, oh, I pushed myself out back naturally to here, and now I can abuse the fact that I can put myself in a range that's unpunishable, but still has options that someone has to fear. You're now adding a spaced mix-up game into your play. Instead of just having your standard stagger pressure and throw game, now you're adding the fact that it's like, you have to fear me from this range, and I can still mix you up and get reward. On top of the fact that now, if they think they have a chance, you now have the ability to have enough space to check them for it. So it's like, if Narukami dashed forward here, tried to do like dash forward 5B, You are basically standing still at this range. Labras 5B checks that and completely out damages him because it's Labras. Same way, once you're here, you're getting only the last hit of Guillotine, so you're doing more damage with last hit Guillotine on top of the sweep that also gets into Oki. With various forms of Oki you could possibly approach. So you have all of that game going for you just from that range change of getting out of where 5A reaches. 5A reaches here, but you backing up just slightly enough to get out of this range now makes it so you're in a different range of game. On top of the fact that you also have all of her persona stuff that's underutilized. One thing that's underthought about with Labras is her persona normals, and they actually do a lot for her on top of her normal cancels, so let's talk about her cancels. So, going back to range 0 real quick, 5A cancelable, 5AA cancelable, on top of the fact that her auto combo, minimum cancelable in the sweep. This actually does a lot more than you think for mind games, just because of the fact that her other cancels matter. Like 5B, backdash, and forward dash cancelable. 2B is forward dash cancelable. 2C is forward dash cancelable. Not considering 5A jump cancel, 2B jump cancel, right? So she has all those cancels that add to her mind game. And with that, it's like, it seems they're not good, right? Slow character. What does she do against characters that are faster than her? Thing is that you have the options, and having these options add a lot to your game based off the spacing, because of the fact that it allows for you to manipulate space in the close range, which not a lot of characters do in this fashion. Because in her case, she does chip damage as 1, and I will get more into that once I start talking about axe levels. But with her chip damage game too, you being from back here and you getting a throw means you can now capitalize on that chip damage just by a simple dash cancel. The same way, at this range, with the ability to check things, her personas end up getting more value because of the fact they do certain things. Like in this case, if I have Narukami, and that's not resets, double jump rate. If I do 2C, which this button is huge, I'm not close enough. Like, that makes him block from double jump height all the way up there and or catches him. Like, with how massive 2C is by itself, especially if you can manage to catch someone, like, on rising. I think I neutral jumps. That way. It's like, you get forced into a situation where it's like, if you manage to catch their block, you can now change ranges on them for free with that simple dash cancel, right? Because now it catches them airborne, and now it gives you the ability to capitalize on that range. And in that case, I was way too early on the throw, but even without the throw, you now change ranges for free just by simply giving them the space to make them think they could jump out, and then you caught it, which is now actually sourcing a reward in a different way, because of the fact that instead of getting the damage, you now are able to freely change your range. So if you think it's better to go to range 0, now you can go to range 0. Keep in mind, I said the key phrase reward sourcing. There will be a whole different section on that. Expect a lot of detail on that. But even with that, it's like, alright, now you have all that, but it's like, alright, what if you don't want to change your ranges? Or if you want to change your ranges without? Well, keep in mind, 5C vortexes. So, or vacuums, rather. So, with 5C having a vacuum function, that also makes it so you have another thing to play with, because now it's like, alright, now you can push them into your range for certain cases where it's like, instead of keeping the corner in the traditional way to sit there and enforce range 0, now you sit there and you're bringing them forcibly into range 0. New option. On top of that, 5D is a gimmick just because of the fact that it's in parts and you have negative edge control over it, so you could determine that. You have that as a pressure thing. 2D is still the same button. It does not matter. But with that, plus also keep in mind she has orb and all this extra things that she has mechanically. You have so many options between these ranges to sit there and force new options into your game. To sit there and see if you can get your opponent to do something so you can get reward. You're not limited to sitting there and be like, okay, like I have to do staggers. I have to sit there and just stagger 5A to death or stagger 2A to death. And then the occasional overhead. Like, no, you have options. Like, even at this range, it's like, let's say you do use sweep, right? Keep in mind, it's hop cancelable. So you are playing a little slight mix-up with this game with this, just for your options, because of the fact that they might not expect you to hop, which also changes your range. On top is like J2B, which is a good spacing tool, just like from neutral jump. I probably won't hit this deep enough. Yeah, like there. Here, so it's like you have J2B to sit there and manage your space. If you want to change ranges from range 0, you have JD, which gates keeps people from standing when stunned low enough, on top of the fact that if they try to immediately retaliate to it, they get caught. And this is a really good starter. And that's all just within Green Axe, without enforcing her momentum game. So then let's talk about the momentum game that Labrys has on top of that, which is where really we get into the abuse of these ranges. Then, once we're in Red Axe, all Axe normals are doing chip. So 5A does chip, 5B does more, 5B does chip, 2B does chip. You get increased chip on her specials, sweep. So now you really get to enforce that if they are just tolerating you from any range and you're sitting there just abusing a range game, you're now enforcing the fact that now you're sitting there doing passive damage. And this passive damage again matters if you paid attention to other videos, because then you all of a sudden do way more damage as you finally get a connect. And that's not considering, again, Labrys' natural reward when she does get a hit. But one thing Labrys is good at is that when she gets a hit, she can make it count. So, having all these games to play with actually does a lot for your game, depending on what's happening, because you get to enforce so many things. That was supposed to be JB, but okay. You get to enforce so many things from mixing up these ranges, depending on how you do it. And knowing how to do that adds a lot to your game. So, welcome to the Golden Position, featuring Labrys. I will say, once again, this does change depending on your character. Like, I can do this with Mitsuru as well, who I've already showcased. But Mitsuru's is way different because the way she enforces her game is different, because she has a different gimmick. Like, especially considering she is completely, basically, a strike throw character, the way her gimmick works is vastly different. So you have to keep in mind, it's like, if I switch this around and I'm Narukami, right? Like, 5A, 2A, 5A, yeah. 5B hits from here, 5C hits from here, 2C hits from here. Not mentioning it's like he has Lion Feint. He has all of this game depending on how close he is to sit there and do. Because Lion in front of you, what is this going to do? Like, that's just a hope and a prayer. But from here, it actually ends up being in a mix-up because of the fact that you have cancels. Things to think about. So, that's the Golden Position. And I've been talking a lot about reward sourcing. So, our next section is going to be on reward sourcing, and I will talk about reward and a whole bunch of different things. Expect that to be very abstract, and it will definitely be a longer section, because I have to talk about a lot of things in it. But there's your heads up on that. Thank you for tuning in. Later.